Hi, my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, September the 13th, and it is a cloudy day, and I think I have to say we are officially at the start of sweater weather. So I think the glorious days are behind me for 2020, and we're going to be into full-on sweater weather, which of course inevitably leads to snow. But it was a lovely summer. So despite all of the COVID things and all that sort of stuff, I did enjoy the weather this summer where I am. Speaking of weather, do have to spend some time acknowledging there are parts of North America where the weather is not going well. So all I can say about that is be careful, be safe, follow the instructions and evacuation orders, do all of that kind of stuff. And, you know, I've said it here before, safety first, safety first, safety first. I will also point out, I might look a little distracted. There is a fly in this room today, and I haven't had time to, you know, deal with it yet. So periodically where I go, one of those, it's because I'm like, oh, there's the fly. Anyway, it's found refuge in my house, unfortunately. It's warmer in here than it is outside. So the topic for this week is Let's Talk Stitchers Math. It is September, the kids have gone back to school, and I come from a long line of teachers. While I myself am not a teacher, I can't help but sort of say, let's learn something. I see the questions come up in the Facebook groups, so I'm going to talk about a little bit of math. And I know math is not everybody's favorite subject, and in fact, math is some people's most hated subject. It will be fine. There's no homework, there's no pop quiz at the end, but I just thought I would walk through a couple of things because I see the questions pop up. I know someone else on Flosstube has done a video on a similar topic, but I'm just going to do my take, and, you know, if I label it Stitchers Math, who knows who may be able to find it. We're going to do everything else first, so Stitchers Math comes at the end. So if you don't want to hear about the Stitchers Math, you don't have to worry about scooting forward or figuring out where it is. Stitchers Math is going to come at the end. You can ignore it if you want. I have a couple of friends who are going to go, I'm going to ignore it because I really don't want to know. But I'm doing it anyway, despite what they say. If you're new to this channel, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoy what you see, and if you do, please like and subscribe. If you're coming back, I've said it before, I'll say it again, you know what you're in for on actually a variety of things. So thank you for coming back. And for those of you who have commented, thank you so much. I really do appreciate those comments. And to everyone who's watching, feel free to comment below, ask questions to your heart's content. Happy to answer any questions that you have and help out in any way that I can. And with that, let's get going. Let's talk about my stitching first and foremost. So September has been, there are people who are doing Sampler September. There are the people who are doing Start at September. Generally, I find those people are the ones who are trying to get ready for No New Starts 2021. And for all of you who've been here before, my goal is please, please let there be new starts in 2021. It's only because I'm working on a big project. There's also the Serendipitous September, and those are the people who are taking like a tiny decisions wheel and spinning it. And the wheel is determining what they're stitching on, and they have their own rules around what they're doing. And then I know last week I said I'm working on Marbec September. Well, if I paid attention to the chart, I too could make it, you know, seem like everything else, because it is also Serendipity Designs. So I can call it Serendipity September as opposed to Marbec September. So Sampler September, Started All September, Serendipity September. See, there I am. So I am working on the center panel of what I typically call the Marbeck Nativity. This is a gigantic panel, it's the big one. And again, if you're new to my channel, the Marbeck Nativity is this five paneled nativity scene. This one is the big one. The stitched area is 18 by 27 inches. I'm doing it on a 36 count antique white Edinburgh linen. So, where did I get to this week? Well, I'm actually quite pleased with my progress this week. And I even did some of the things that I said I was going to do, which is not always the case. So here's where I got to. So I did complete all of my, all of the back stitching in the shepherd. So he is now complete. So technically, all of the, well, not quite all, but most of the cross stitching over here is all complete. There's still a little bit of steps and grass off to the sides, which I'm saving till sort of the end. And so this week, so finished the back stitching on this and worked on Joseph, and I think he's shaping up quite nicely. He's coming together. One of the things that I was really pleased about this week is when you compare this to the pattern, he's not nearly as orange. And you know how I feel about my browns and oranges. Not a fan of them. So I think part of my, you know, not necessarily gonna enjoy this besides the Krynic, which, okay, that's a different story, was, you know, it's looking a little orange in the cover photo. And as we all know, you know, generally the cover photos don't necessarily do justice to the piece or really show what it's like. And so here's a prime example. Thank heavens he's not nearly as orange as he looks like in the cover photo. So I'm really happy about that. So I'm really happy with this. You know, as I was stitching along, going like, this seems to be going all just fine. And, you know, why in the world did it take me so long to get the shepherd finish, where I feel like Joseph is coming along quicker? A couple of reasons for that. One, while you can't necessarily see it, technically the shepherd is bigger than Joseph. So, you know, not surprisingly, there's more stitching. There's actually more stitching here than there will be for Joseph. And two, you know, of course, back in the tail end of August, we had that glorious weather where I was hugely distracted because I needed to be outside enjoying it, which of course slowed down my stitching. And again, it was the right decision at the time, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. And now that we've moved into sweater weather and I'm back inside, I'm being more productive. So I'm really hoping that Joseph is going to be completed by the end of this week. In my head, I know I said I was going to work on that concept of what did I absolutely have to get done to try to make sure I could accomplish Marbeck in the time frame that I've got. And it threw me off this week because I'm like, maybe I really don't know how much I can get accomplished in whatever time frame. So I've kind of mapped out in my head where I think I need to be at a few key milestones to say that I'm making progress. So for this last week, I was happy with my progress. I'm happy with how Joseph is coming together. I'm actually kind of looking forward to working on him tonight because I think my next color that I'm working on, one, it's in some really nice solid blocks of color, and you know, that'll make it a little bit easier. So anyway, so that's my Marbeck. And yeah, there's my regular weird pause because I'm going to try and get, you know, a clip to, in case YouTube chooses to post something really funky. So that's my Marbeck. Happy with that. So What will I be working on this week? More Marbeck, particularly Joseph. But as I noted last week, I was also trying to spend a little bit of time working on something else so that I didn't feel like all I did was Marbeck. This last week I actually would have been fine only working on Marbeck. I was okay, but I was going to try and get something accomplished. So this is the Hinzeit Miniblock Autumn. That's what the pattern looks like. And I was close to a finish last week, and so you will be happy to know that I have finished it. With my little magnets. So there we go, complete with charms and everything. I do need to do a little bit of thought about whether I need to get a little bit of fabric glue and just, so I've sewed these on, but of course, as you move things around, they move a little bit as much as I've tried to tack them on solidly. So I am thinking I might need to get a little bit of fabric glue just to sort of tack down at the bottom, because of course at the bottom of each of these charms there's nothing for me to attach anything to it. And again, I don't think the color is showing up very well today. It's better back here. So I've done this on a 32 count lugana, might be ivory cream, something like that. The over-dyed floss, so one floss for this, it is Caron Wildflowers Fiesta. It does not have the number on here, so I will include that in the notes below. And surprisingly for me, I actually did do it in the called for thread color. So I do think it does look fallish, and I was okay with it in this context. But this does mean that one of my mania starts, all the way back to May when I started this. Again, I only worked on it for one weekend in May, which for some people out there, you could have like gotten the whole thing completed, but anyway. So I have another one that's complete. So this is two of my mania starts that are now complete. Now the other thing that I'm doing with this, because this is now complete, is I'm saying I can now start another small. Now whether or not I choose to start it right away, I have also decided under my rules, because it's my cross stitching and I set the rules, I can carry forward my start. I don't have to start it right away. I can carry forward my allowance of one new small start forward to some point in the future of my choosing, because I've now completed this, and I'm very happy with that. Now, some of you are going, that's really nice, Judy. How are you actually going to finish this thing? Well, as you all know, I'm really not good at the fully finishing anything. So feel free to comment below what you think I should do with this. I'm also going to put out there my sewing skills are ridiculously not good, so keep that in mind. I don't know for something that's, you know, this small that I would necessarily want to frame it, but technically I suppose I could go to a Michael's and find some small frame and see if it fits or whatever. So feel free to comment below and let me know what you think how I should finish this. I don't know, maybe I could get it finished by the end of September. I don't know, let's see. I'll have to think about it. But I have a finish and I'm happy with it. I will say I like the effect of the color, the over-dyed wildflowers. I will say, did I really enjoy working with the wildflowers? No, not so much. You know, would I go, ooh, if only I could do another piece and I would use wildflowers? No, not so much. Luckily, for a lot of the colors, You can get it also in the Water Lilies, which is a silk by Caron, which I like those ones better. But as we said way back in May when I originally started this, I looked at Fiesta in both the Water Lilies and the Wildflowers, and from a tonal perspective, the Wildflowers was a better choice. So I'm still happy with it. I'm also happy with how my A came out in its variegation. So overall, I'm happy with my fall project using fall colors, which are not normally my color palette. But I do have something that's complete, and that's positive. All right. So those are the two things that I stitched on this week. My plans for this week will come as no surprise to anybody. You know, I'll be working on Marbeck. I will be, you know, I'll get to choose this week whether, so I've got a couple of other Mania starts that are not finished yet, so I could always go back and start one of those. I do have another small in mind that I might try to start. I haven't decided whether I want to start it just yet or not, hence the I'm allowed to carry forward my start. So Marbeck for sure. Whether I work on another small this week, check back next week and see what I ended up deciding on doing. I'm just going to briefly touch on a couple of Sows, which you've heard me talk about before. There's always the Ann Morison Sow with Hands Across the Sea and traditional stitches. I'm highlighting this one again, so this has become a limited edition chart. Clearly this is not the actual chart, this is a picture of the chart. But shipping is supposed to start taking place, I'm going to say mid-October-esque. Start date for the Sow is December the 5th. So that's Ann Morison. Links to that in the notes below. We are, of course, with Off the Grid Needle Arts. Caroline is doing her Blooming Bouquets stitch along with Jeannette Douglas's for Blooming Bouquets charts. This is starting, the Sow is starting October the 12th, which is Canadian Thanksgiving. And of course the one that I have in my possession is Joyful down here. Now, as we said, whether or not I actually, you know, I'm really good about talking about a Sow and watching a Sow and cheering on a Sow. I'm really not good about stitching the Sow in a timely fashion. So, you know, will I be watching the Sow? Of course. Will I be paying attention to the Sow? Of course. Will I necessarily be stitching actively as part of the Sow? Who knows? Technically, October the 12th is an entire month away from today. So, and again, I think what I had mentioned when I first brought this up is it depends on where Marbeck is. A month from now, depending on where Marbeck is, maybe I will start the Sow. Maybe I won't start the Sow. I don't know. Check back. See what I end up doing. Okay, so for my free chart part of my episodes, I'm just going to briefly touch on Linen and Threads, who for the past, this is their 4th year of them doing a stitch along where they come out with a different part every month. So yes, we're in September, so 9 parts have already been released for the 2020 Sow. You know, have I started this? Of course not. That's not the point. So the one this year is called, I think it's the Friends and Family Sow. So this is where, this is what this piece is going to look like as of the September part that's been released, which of course is the darker part over here. So all of this has been, is parts 1 through 8. This is a free sal, so you just go to the Linens and Threads web page and download your parts. It's free. Check back at the beginning of every month to get the rest of the parts. And you know me and my big, hey, download your free charts while you can get them. So this is the 2021 Friends and Family, because they have these initials that are interspersed throughout the chart. So you can include the initials of your friends and family. So Quaker motifs is effectively what this is. And as is typical, I will put a link to this in the notes below so that if you are interested in this, you can easily click on the link and get to where you can download it for yourself. Now, as I said, this is their 4th year of them posting a stitch along. So I'm actually going to go and show all the way the one that's started it all. So this is the one that they did in 2017. So this was a long band sampler. Now, with both of these, just because it's show whatever color they've chosen, you can do it in any color you want. You can do it in 12 colors if you want. You can do it in 57 colors if you want. You can do it in an over-dyed of any kind. It is entirely up to you. Of course, so for the 2017, all of the parts for this are available right now. Again, this is a free chart. Yeah. It's not small. This is a free chart that you can get from Linen and Threads. The 2018 and the 2019 are also still available. So I will put the links to all 4 stitch alongs in the notes below. Now, I haven't checked in recently to see if they're even remotely talking about what they're planning on doing in 2021. You know, we're still in 2020, you know, it's not like the 2021 is complete yet, but, you know, I'm always interested in what the next new thing is. And will I be making sure that I will have downloaded my parts? Of course, because I'm a big proponent of when you see a chart, even if you think you sort of like it, but you're not entirely convinced, my recommendation is always download it now while it's available, because your tastes can also change. Now you can get, you know, 5 years out, 7 years out, or longer for people like me, where you go, your tastes have completely changed and you thought you liked it and now you have no interest in it whatsoever. In that case, it's really easy to get rid of the file, although I'm not good about ever doing that. It's also the possibility where you sort of think you like it and 5 years from now you're like, I love these types of things, you know. So again, my thing is free charts. If you think you like it, download it while it's available. It's my big watchword. All right. So that is all of the non-math related topics for this week. So if you really can't stand the thought of math of any sort, and again, it's not like you need the calculator, it's not like you need to do any of the work, it's not like there's homework, and there's certainly not going to be a test. But if math stresses you out, thank you for stopping by, and I hope you have a really great week, and I hope you find time to do some stitching. For those of you who are a little bit interested in the math, let's do some Stitcher's math. And so what I'm going to be talking about, the question that I see come up is people don't understand the fabric cuts. So when you see things and people are talking about a wide half, a wide quarter, a wide eighth, whatever it is, and people are like, how in the world am I supposed to know what that means? This is the math that we're going to cover this week, because we're going to learn something. So this is what I'm calling a yard of fabric is. Anyway, I'm not playing. So here's your yard. It's 36 inches across. And I know I'm a Canadian and we do things in metric in here, but even for me in my head, and certainly when I'm shopping from my LNS or a Canadian one, we still refer to it as a yard. So the math works equally up here. So there's the 36 inches. Now, this dimension, the long part here, and again, I'm not the best at drawing and things like that, so is it, proportionate? Of course not. Hence 36 across here, 55 is the long edge. And generally, when you're talking about many linens and lugana, which of course is one of my more favorite fabrics, 55 inches is generally the length of the fabric when you're getting it off a bolt. Does this hold across all of your fabrics? No. Jobelins, sometimes it's 55, sometimes it's less than that. Ada's, I'm calling it, I think it's 40, anywhere between 42 to 44. Not one that I tend to do, so the concept is the same across your fabrics. It's just that the dimensions, again, if the length of the fabric is not 55 inches, you do the same math, but with whatever your number is. So number one, so when people are talking about a wide half, what they're really talking about is taking the fabric and dividing it in half this way. So you've still got you've got 36 inches of length, but now you've got effectively 27.5 inches across, right? So 27.5 gets you to your 55. So if you cut it across this way, if you split your fabric this way, you've got 27.5 by 36 and 27.5 by 36. That is your wide half. So then you start with wide halves to get to wide quarters. And not surprisingly, the next step is to take each of your halves and divide them in half to get your quarters. So when you divide this in half, you're going to get 18 inches. So your wide quarter is 27.5 by 18.5. Now, sometimes if you're getting some fabrics, particularly if it's an over-dyed fabric, you may buy it and you can say, I ordered a wide quarter, and when you get it, you can measure it out. And it may not be exactly 18 by 27.5. Now, as usual, I've spoken to no dyers and I don't know exactly what they do, but in my head, let's pretend they take the yard, they dye the whole yard up, and they're then cutting it into, halves or quarters that somebody's ordered. They dye it all up and then they cut it. The dyeing process for most over-dyed fabrics shrinks it a little bit. And so when they go to cut it, they will have taken a yard, they will cut it into these things. Is it going to be exactly 27.5 by 18? No, it could be slightly less than this, but effectively they took what was originally a 27.5 by 18 piece of fabric and dyed it. So again, that's the thing with over-dyed fabrics, is it does tend to shrink it a little bit. So wide half, wide quarter, and then of course we have our wide eighths, which means take it down even one further, and that's usually, so take the quarter 18 by 27 and divide it in half again. So then you're going to have a piece that is 18 across by, I'm calling it, well, 13 3/4. Generally, although when you order it, the mass is 13 3/4 to get it to the 27.5. Most stores, when you see it, they'll just call it 13.5 by 18. Right, so there's your 18, but you've taken your 27.5 and divided again, and that's how you're going to get your 8 pieces. So that's what happens when you're doing wide anythings. Wide half, wide quarter, wide eighth. Is that the only way you can buy these? Of course not. So the other version is what happens when you do it the other way. So I'm back to, here's my yard, 36 inches across, 55 tall. So you can also buy things in, sometimes they're called a tall half or a long half. And so instead of cutting it across the middle, they do it the longest way, which is again the 55. So if you were to order a tall or a long half, what they're going to do is they're going to divide it, take the yard and divide it straight down the middle. So your piece is going to become 18 inches by 55 to get your tall half. Then, if you're going to get a tall quarter, same thing. The tall means, tall or long means that they're really keeping it to the full length of the fabric. So then the quarter becomes cutting those halves in half again. So now you've got a piece that's 9 inches. Right? So that's how you get it. You know, why would somebody buy a piece of fabric that's 9 inches by 55 inches? Well, for example, Victoria's samplers, some of their their samplers, they're long and narrow, and so you may not, the length of it may not necessarily fit on a wide quarter. It would probably fit on a wide half, but you know, then you're going to end up with 2 of those. And so, you know, those are the styles of designs which would cause you to go looking for fabrics that are either a tall half or a tall quarter. Now, to be perfectly honest, I don't think I've ever seen a tall eighth, because then you're really getting skinny. So then you're getting into the land of like 4.5, which is really skinny. So I don't think that I can say that I've ever seen anybody advertising that they're selling it a tall eighth. Not to, you know, but again, I haven't checked everywhere, but I for sure have seen tall halves and I have seen tall quarters. So I know that, so that's possible. Again, is this the most common reference to how material is cut? No. But it is one of the versions. The more common version is, of course, when you're buying them as a wide. Now, are those the only 2 ways that it can be cut? Of course not. So there's one other way. This, I would say, in my experience, is less common, but again, it is still possible, and you can still see people referencing things. So here's version number 3. still think. So same thing, here's my yard, 36 by 55. And what this is if you see it, they're being sold by a sixth. So what happens in a sixth is they divide it down the middle. So you now have 18. And then they cut it into thirds. Because effectively, 54 divided by 3 gets you 18. So then each of these pieces is 18. So it effectively takes you to a square piece of fabric. 6 pieces a square, 18 by 18 for each of those dimensions. But again, as I've said, this is less, you don't tend to see this as much, but you can see it. So, you know, best to have all the information. Less common, more common is the tall, but the most common is the wide. And again, your measurements on an Aida are also going to be different because Aida tends not to be 55. But those are the different ways that you end up cutting it, and that's why things are called a tall half, a tall quarter, a wide half, a wide quarter. And it's September, and we're learning things because everybody's going back to school. So that's Stitcher's Math for this week. So for those of you that know all this stuff, hey, sorry for repeating something that you know really well. I'm really doing this for those people who are new or they don't understand, because again, I see the topic come up frequently, and everyone's like, why is it a wide eighth? Why is it a wide quarter? How in the world am I supposed to know when somebody's talking about what a wide quarter is, what the dimensions are? And it, you know, it does happen for those of us that have been stitching for a long time. It's become just part of your language, right? Where you go like, ooh, I bought a wide quarter, I bought a wide eighth, that'll fit on a wide eighth, it'll fit on a wide quarter, and you've got somebody in the background going like, what in the world is a wide eighth? Like, what is that supposed to mean? And, you know, as I said at the beginning, even here in Canada, despite the fact that we are metric for many, many things when it comes to our stitching in the fabric, we still do it in imperial. So there you go. That is your math lesson for this week. Hope you found that interesting or helpful. And again, the Flosstube will always be here if you need to come back and have a refresher. I don't know that anybody's necessarily going to want to do that, but there you go. And with that, that ends this week's Flosstube. So I hope everybody is staying safe, and I'm going to end this with where I started. Safety first, safety first. Make sure that you are staying safe, because that's most important. And for the rest of it, I hope that you all have a really good week, and that you find time to stitch this week, and that you are able to find enjoyment and peace and calm in your stitching. And with that, I hope to see you next week. Take care.